Welcome back to How to AP Lang. Today we're going to be breaking down Unit 3 of AP Language, English Language, and Composition. This unit is mainly on understanding writing, evidence, and commentary. So we're officially a decent amount into this channel. On the channel currently we have a ton of videos to help you get your way through AP Language and Composition. We have our first two units broken down, as well as breaking down the rhetorical analysis essay, as well as two videos talking about how to write on the AP level. So we have a ton of things to get you started on learning the AP Language curriculum. Here today, we're going to be breaking down Unit 3, the Understanding Writing, Evidence, and Commentary. So these units aren't actually named. These are my ideas of what the units really are about. Of course, these units are very abstract because the entire idea of the course is to learn about a few very simple topics in depth, learning how to find evidence, learning how to find claims, learning how to find big ideas in writing and things like that. So each unit is really broken up by just different levels of it. So we're on a little bit of a higher level here. However, a big piece of this unit is where they first introduce the essays on College Board. This is where they suggest you first read about what these essays, what the three essays on the exam are going to be. There's the synthesis, arguments, and rhetorical analysis. So that's a big piece of it. There's also a big piece with evidence, and then what commentary is, what analysis is, and how to really go into that. Unit 1 was really about rhetorical and rhetoric, and Unit 2 was really about evidence and claims. So it's really a good progression. But we're going to do a quick review on what a claim is and how does one create a claim. So a claim is one has a belief or argument relating to a claim. So this is when you're writing, when you are creating a claim, you have some belief or argument relating to a topic. And then you find a source that supports your argument, probably. Whether that be a theory, if it's like sociology, you find a theory that supports it. Whether it be like science and you find some sort of study or something that supports your claim, you want to find something that supports it. When you write a claim, you want your claim to be broad enough that it can be generalized, but not specific enough that it can be easily refuted. And what that means is you don't want your claim to be, in The Lord of the Flies, the usage of this one single tree is this whole thing in the whole novel. Could that be an incredible essay? Yes, but you have to argue it well. And what I mean by that is actually the tree example could be a really fascinating essay. However, what the big thing is when you're writing your claim, you don't want your claim to be so hyper-specific that the own pieces can contradict it. That's like saying you're like taking 1 out of 100 and writing your whole essay on that, because then there's the 99 going against it. But you don't want to make your whole thing 100 out of 100, because then there's going to be things that contradict it as well. Each essay has some sort of middle ground, something that you can find a good claim that is big enough that it encompasses your sources. However, it's not small enough that it's big enough that it can still be generalized, it can still work with the sources. However, it's not contradicted, and it's still not going to be too specific that it can easily be, it's enough that it can't be refuted in a good way. And that's what a good claim is really going to be. And claims are obviously backed up by evidence, analysis, and commentary. So what is evidence? Evidence are ideas that help back up a claim and facts that can further help explain the claim. And they help enrich an essay. So this is all from last video. But very simply with evidence, all that means is you just got to know what evidence is. This is what is proving your point. When you're writing an essay, you have your claim, then you have your evidence, and then you have your analysis or commentary, your interpretations. That is your explanation. But right now, your evidence is you giving your own things to support it. This is what you're telling someone. Your evidence is fact. And then commentary analysis, that's your own opinion. That's your own beliefs. So evidence is hugely important, but I'm not going to go into that here because we already did a full video on that. Commentary is new. So what is commentary? Commentary is the way that one analyzes claims and evidence. So commentary can also be known as an analyzation. It can also be known as interpretation. The reason why commentary is normally used on the AP's exams is because two out of the 3 essays are based on documents, plus all of the multiple choice will be based on documents. So commentary is very important because it is like based off the docs. Analyzation more so is going to be based off your own writing or other people's writing. Analyzation is a more general term. Commentary, I think, is a more specific idea. But analyzing is also going to work here. You're going to see people say analyzing as well. Analyzation and commentary are pretty simple. It's providing one's own beliefs on an issue, specifically with commentary. Analyzation is going deeper into it, fully breaking it down. Commentary is taking evidence from other works and using it to benefit their own argument. Whether that this be supporting or counter-supporting the claim that you're trying to do, either way, you would get commentary to support your argument, whether that be you're supporting something that someone else said or you're refuting it. The difference between commentary and analyzation is you're explaining it. You're explaining the evidence and the claims in your essay, and analyzation's a bit later in the year. However, what commentary is how what someone is saying or what someone's saying or what evidence they're getting and how they are responding to it. So commentary is a response, analyzation is a breakdown. And I think that's the very big important. Commentary can also be positive or negative, but the big thing with commentary is you're taking something else and you're really breaking it down. So we have a few images we're going to do here before we go into the multiple choice. This is one of the three the College Board really likes to show, and that there's interpret, emphasize, evaluate, analyze. These are all different things that are going to be playing into this idea of commentary. Commentary pretty much includes all of these. You could replace some of these words for different things. These are all important ideas to know. If you don't know how to do any of these things, if you don't understand interpreting something, emphasizing something, commentating on something, analyzing something, evaluating something, then that's where the issues come in. But this is you need to understand this skill. The way we're using commentary as our general term here. We're probably going to do a deeper video on commentary analysis, things like that later in the year. I think that's a later unit specifically anyway. But I wanted to begin with that now here because that's the big thing. Here's another very famous chart, and this is like a 4-way grid on where a certain piece of writing can fall. Is it a definition of something? Is it a narration? Is it a description? Or is it a comparison? Pretty much every piece of writing is going to fall somewhere in this area. You're never really going to have like a definition and a description because description is has more adjective. Descriptions explaining something. Definitions giving facts. I'd say descriptions more vivid, more fictional. Definitions more non-fictional, more fact-based. Of course, they can go hand in hand, and that's why they're all on the same grid. However, you're normally going to see. You're also never really going to see narration and comparison similarly. They're just very different. But you want to try to see if you can place any piece of writing on this grid because it's going to help you see how you're going to talk about your essay. You can even use it in comparison to this. For description, maybe you're going to talk about emphasis. For comparison, maybe you're going to talk about analyzing or evaluating. Definition, I'd say, is more evaluate, and comparison more analyze. And then for narration, you could interpret it. How are they interpreting it? So try to really place it here. The last image is this one, and is this really great 3 triangle. So what are the 3 things you need to do? You need to make an interpretive claim, comment on how the choice supports the claim, and provide evidence of a choice made by a writer. So all 3 of these things are going to be in your essays. They're always going to be in the works that you're going to be reading on the multiple choice. In my opinion, this is probably the best image we're going to go through. I definitely suggest understanding this one, understanding how to do claims, commentary, and evidence. Commentary is a very challenging thing to explain because it's rather simple. It's just how are you responding to something? However, it's a very challenging thing to actually write. So I might do a full video later on the full explanation on how to write commentary. But really, we're going to do a few multiple choice where we're going to break down some good questions on how commentary is affecting it. So we're going to do multiple choice in a second, but I do hope that this was helpful, at least explaining this unit, because I think this is a harder unit to understand and explain. But commentary very simply is responding to things. That's all it really is. So I'm going to let you guys pause the video here. You guys can quickly read the Kellogg 1 AP questions. These are real AP questions. On the AP exam, on a formal one at least, they had 9 multiple choice questions for this document. I only pulled 4 for this video. You can pause this here to read it. Now there's oh no, there is not a second page. I thought I had to do this on 2 pages. I guess I was able to move it down to 1. So you guys can pause it here. You can read it, but we're going to move on. So we're going to go back and forth, but this is just saying, which of the following so this is question 1. Which of the following best describes how the author organizes the reasoning of his argument in the opening lines of the passage? So let's read it. Warned by this disaster of the last great war, the statesmen of all the nations have been taking measures to prevent the truth of another such calamity. These measures may not constitute an absolute guarantee of peace, but in my opinion, they constitute the greatest preventive measures ever adopted by nations. So what is best describes what the how the author organizes the reasoning? So is he A, arguing for specific cases to a general conclusion? I'd say possibly, but he isn't using specific cases. He mentioned from the last great war, and it does tell you that this was in the 1930s on the real thing. I don't know if I copied and pasted that here. No, I didn't. But so I wouldn't say that's a great one. I think it's possible. B, tracing a sequence of events resulting in a positive outcome. I think that one's a little bit better, but we'll see if there's anything better for it. This one's good because it says after the Great War, this happened in our way to peace. So it is a positive outcome from a sequence of events. I'd say we could eliminate A here, but let's keep it in both in as well. C, pointing out differences among various opinions. There weren't really any differences that he was pointing out. And D, drawing parallels between a current situation and a past crisis. I think both B and D are great answers. I think D, even though it's showing a current situation and a past crisis, the reason why this is necessarily wrong is because that's not in this part. The rest of his essay is about how it could lead to that. But his opening things are about how war led to peace. So the answer here is going to be B. So if you look back, you can see he's talking about how it may not absolute guarantee peace, but it's the best preventive measures ever adopted by nation. So that's why it's going to be B. Let's move on to question number 2. In the third sentence of the first paragraph, the author mentions that war has through the centuries been recognized by international law as a sovereign right. So why does he do this? Why does he mention this? So let's go through it. So what does it mean actually? Let's first say that. What does it mean that it is a sovereign right? Why would someone be saying that if once you read it, you would know? The purpose of his essay is pretty much to say war is bad, let's keep peace. Let's not try to fight more. Because Europe at this time in the 1930s seemed like there would be going to another world war, and it eventually did. This author was trying to argue that that wouldn't happen. So was he offering evidence in support of his ultimate conclusion? Not really, because why would you be saying it's a sovereign right? If it's a sovereign right, then he shouldn't be arguing against it. B, provide context his audience may lack. I think this is a fine answer. However, it's not really supporting his claim, so I don't love this one either. C, it registers a potential objection to a position he supports. I think this is probably going to be the correct answer because, again, it shows why would someone say, someone's saying, let's not go to war, this is a great response. It's our sovereign right. We can do this. And D, challenges the factual basis for a view he opposes. No, because it says it's true. Throughout the centuries, it has been recognized. So the answer is going to be C. This one's definitely a little bit more challenging, but I think it's still a good question. And it's going to understand why his claim is so important. When you're doing this essay, if you're able to point out the fact that his claim is that he wants peace and he doesn't want to go to war, that makes it a lot easier. But again, that's understanding how to find a claim, how to find evidence. And again, his essay is a lot of commentary on why other people believe that they should go to war and why he believes that's wrong. So that's a very good way to understand commentary and claims and stuff. Number 3, which of the following best characterizes the relationship between the first and second paragraphs? So I'm not going to go back and read them. However, we're just going to answer this question. You can go back in the video if you want to read it again. But A, the first paragraph states the disadvantages of engaging into war. The second discusses an alternative method of resolving such disagreements. This one's not terrible. I'm going to leave this one on the table for now, but I'm going to explain more about it in a minute. B, the first paragraph offers a generalization about the darker aspects of human nature. The second identifies a possible counterexample. This one is also not great. I think this one is probably worse than the first one. Even though the first paragraph is somewhat about that stuff, the second one isn't really about a possible counterexample because that would be the lighter aspects of human nature, and that's not really what the second paragraph is about. The first paragraph highlights the destructive impact of war on society. The second paragraph elaborates on how a certain mindset in the first paragraph increases the likelihood of war. I think this is a fine answer. I'm guessing that this is the second best answer. The reason why A is going to be wrong is because it states the disadvantages of engaging in war. However, the second one's not really about an alternative method because the first one's also about that method. His ideas for peace and stuff are really his third and fourth paragraphs. C is also going to be wrong. The correct answer is going to be D. The first paragraph describes a trend in international relations. The second paragraph expounds on how a specific example mentioned in the first paragraph contributes to that trend. And if you read it, it's kind of obvious that it's there. The first one explains why wars happen in the past. And then the second paragraph is about why that trend has continued. I think the first one, even though it's highlighting the destructive impact of war on societies, that's not what his essay is necessarily about, and that's not what the first paragraph is necessarily about. Even though it's mentioned, and even though the second one is highlighting on it, that's not the purpose, and that doesn't characterize the relationship. The relationship is the trend in foreign relations. More of the essay is about the nations fighting instead of the societies, even though there's a sentence or two probably in the paragraphs relating to C, and why C is a very good and close answer. D is the better answer, but it's a very good answer. C is also a good answer. D is just slightly better. And the reason you're going to be able to point this out on the AP is you can see League of Nations, Court of International Justice in the first paragraph, Pact of Paris in the second. Even though there are some things about ruined homes, destructive lands in the second paragraph, it's also not really about the mindset of it. It's more, even though it does mention blood and destruction in the first one, it's not about that. It's about the international relations, which is why it's going to be D. Our last question. At the beginning of the third paragraph, the author refers to those who believe that peace will not be attained until some super tribunal is established, primarily to. So why is he saying this? Why is he saying to those who believe that peace will not be attained until some super tribunal is established? Why does he refer to these people? So option A, invoke the authority of a widely held opinion. He would not be invoking the authority. Invoke is like calling upon it. Why would he be calling upon the authority of something you don't agree with? B, acknowledging an alternative perspective. I think this is going to be one of the good answers, but we'll continue it forward. C, highlight a potential drawback. This is not really what it's going to be. There's no drawback that he's highlighting. Or D, criticize a view that he regards as overly optimistic. So I'd say B and D are good answers, and you'd have to reread the document to understand why it's going to be B that is the correct answer. However, we're going to actually do that then and understand this. So he says, I know there are some who believe that peace cannot be attained until a super tribunal is established to punish the violators of such treaties. But I believe that in the abolition of war, the maintenance of world peace, and the adjustment of international questions by pacific means. So he actually is the optimistic one. They're saying you have to punish people and you need to make a super court to punish everyone. That's not overly optimistic. That's going to extreme lengths to do something. B, he's just acknowledging the perspective. He's saying this is what it could be. He's not actually criticizing it. If you read that whole paragraph again, you're going to see he never says that's a bad idea. He just says, I believe my idea is better because I believe that acting towards peace and not leading to war, not leading to conflict, is better. And that's even more optimistic. So that's why B is going to be the correct answer here. All right, so that is Unit 3 of AP English Language and Composition. In the future videos, we're going to do a lot more with commentary, a lot more with writing. However, I really wanted to get started on Unit 3 here today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys are enjoying this channel, and I hope you guys are at least learning something here at How to AP Lang. We'll do more in the future, but comment down below what you guys want to learn, what you guys need help with, because I already know all this stuff. So that's it. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.